Hey guys and gals, it's your buddies Drew, Ralphie, and Harry with Living History's Mysteries and Ferocious Feline Productions. You know, it's kind of ironic. We're going from one extreme to the next with these videos. The video that just premiered on this past Thursday was about the Catholic Church. And today, we're going to do a video on minors.
I want no part of this.
Not minors, minors. Everybody's familiar with the troubles and tribulations that the mining industry had during the earlier years. But even as new as the early 20th century, things were really getting bad for the mining industry. The unions were starting to come into play, and these big mining companies wanted nothing to do with unions. They controlled the environment the miners had to work in. They controlled the pay rate that the miners received. They controlled where the miners were able to live or to purchase their goods and supplies for their families and themselves. One such incident that was beyond terrible occurred in West Virginia in a town called Matewan. It was probably one of the worst massacres that ever occurred on American soil, and one of the very few times the military got involved. But I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it. I'm going to let you see for yourself. Check this out. This is good.
On May 19th, 1920, 10 men were killed in a gunfight in the small town of Matewan, West Virginia, that would become known as the Matewan Massacre. And in this video, we are going to take a look at this bloody event in history that has been largely forgotten. In 1912, the Paint Creek Cabin Creek strike erupted when miners demanded better pay, better work conditions, the right to trade where they pleased, which ended the practice of forcing miners to buy from company-owned stores, and recognition of the United Mine Workers of America, known as the UMWA. The mine owners refused to give the miners what they wanted, and they hired the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency as mine guards and strike breakers to put an end to the strike. The Baldwin Felts had a reputation for being ruthless, bloodthirsty, and relentless in their pursuit of getting the job done. As soon as the detectives arrived, there were hostilities between them and the miners. On September 1st, 1912, approximately 6,000 unionized miners from across the Kanawha River crossed the river and declared their intent to kill the mine guards and destroy the company operations. Due to this threat, the mining companies deployed additional armed guards and awaited the attack. Consequently, the governor proclaimed martial law to be in effect on September 2nd, 1912. After many deaths, the strike ended in 1913, with the miners accepting a deal that benefited the mine owners more than the miners. Even though they were back in the mines, there was still a spark of rebellion burning in the mines across West Virginia. In April 1920, between 275 and 300 miners in Matewan, located in Mingo County, joined the UMWA. In a retaliation, the Burnwell Coal and Coke Company fired all Union-aligned miners and gave them 3 days to leave their company-owned houses. On April 27, 1920, Mingo County officials arrested Baldwin Felts agent Albert C. Felts for illegally evicting miners of the Burnwell Coal and Coke Company as punishment for union activity. Mingo County Sheriff G.T. Blankenship negotiated with miners' groups that as long as only Mingo County officials enforced the eviction notices, the miners would peacefully comply. A miners' tent colony was set up outside Matewan for evicted miners, and there would be killings in and around Mingo County throughout the weeks leading up to the massacre. About 3,000 miners had joined the UMWA and armed themselves for all-out war against the mine owners. One of the main mine companies in the area, the Stone Mountain Coal Company, hired the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency to once again put down the strike. This led to many attacks on mines, and storage facilities were blown up. Replacement workers were kidnapped and executed, and the Baldwin Felts retaliated by creating false charges against UMWA members and then murdering them in the woods and along the roads. This enraged the miners, who increased their attacks, but they were soon to have a hero to lead them all, a man by the name of Sid Hatfield. Sid Hatfield had a reputation for hard living and fighting, and his appointment in 1919 to the post of police chief of Matewan by the mayor, Cabell Testerman, surprised some of the more respectable people in town. Both Hatfield and Testerman were proud supporters of the UMWA, and they aided the miners in any way that they could. Sid Hatfield had been a miner when he was younger, and some say he was at Paint Creek during the strike of 1912. When fighting broke out in 1920, it is said that he and his deputy, Ed Chambers, had led an attack on the coal tipple in Mohawk, West Virginia, that led to the deaths of many mine guards. Hatfield did not like the Baldwin Felts, and they attempted to bribe him into giving them information about the UMWA, and he allegedly laughed them out of the county. On May 19th, a number of Baldwin Felts detectives, led by Albert Felts and Lee Felts, were sent to evict families living at the Stone Mountain coal camp just outside Matewan. The plan was for the detectives to make the evictions and then catch train number 16 back to Bluefield, where their headquarters were. The sheriff and his deputy of the coal camp sensed trouble and met the Baldwin Felts detectives at the train station. News of the eviction soon spread around the town, and there was a large number of miners in town that day because a shipment of supplies and money had just arrived from the UMWA. Sid Hatfield then called Tony Webb, who was a deputy sheriff of Mingo County and was a friend of the UMWA, and requested him to send up warrants for the arrest of Felts and his men. Webb told Hatfield that he could not get the warrants to Matewan before train number 16 would run. This led Sid to remark over the phone, "Fine, we will kill them before they leave the town." The miners then set up an ambush along the road that the detectives would be walking down. While these men were at the railroad near the station preparing to take the train, Sid Hatfield and a group of men came up to Mr. Felts and questioned him about what they were doing in town. Sid then told him that he would have to hold the detectives until after number 16 ran. When Sid Hatfield approached Mr. Felts served a warrant for Sid Hatfield, but Hatfield seemed to not care about the warrant and believed it was a fake. Once they reached Chambers' hardware store, Sid went inside, while Mr. Felts stood outside in front of the door. Some questioned the genuineness of the warrant, and at the time, Mr. Felts was surrounded by a large crowd of men. Mayor Cabell Testerman walked up, and Mr. Felts passed the warrant over to him for examination. There was an argument between the three men, and no one knows who fired the first shot, but after the first shots were fired, Albert Felts was dead, and Mayor Testerman was lying on the ground with a mortal wound. Some say Sid Hatfield stuck his revolver up within a few inches of Albert Felts' head and shot him while Felts was arguing with Testerman. Before the detectives could draw their weapons, the miners opened fire from all sides, and Sid Hatfield shot Lee Felts and C.B. Cunningham, a key member of the detectives' ranks. The detectives scattered and tried to flee, but they were hunted down and shot by the miners. A few managed to escape and make it back to Bluefield. After the shooting had stopped, Sid Hatfield fired a shot into the body of Albert Felts, and another miner walked up and fired a high-powered rifle into the head of Albert Felts. It's estimated a few hundred shots were fired, and after the smoke had cleared, Mayor Testerman laid in the street, dying. 7 detectives were dead, and 3 miners also lay dead. Mayor Testerman was aided by his wife, but he ended up dying in the streets from his wounds. Sid Hatfield boasted around town that he had killed the head detectives, and he dared more Baldwin Felts to challenge him. This challenge would prove fatal. Sid Hatfield was hailed as a hero, and the UMWA used the victory as a major propaganda campaign to get more miners on their side. They even sent a small film crew to film Sid in a short film called Smilin' Sid, and the miners' ranks swelled to over 5,000. Governor John Cornwell ordered the state police force to take control of Matewan. Hatfield and his men cooperated and stacked their arms inside the hardware store. On July 1st, the miners' union went on another strike, and widespread violence erupted. Railroad cars were blown up, and strikers were beaten and left to die on the side of the road. Tom Felts, the last remaining Felts brother, sent undercover operatives to collect evidence to convict Sid Hatfield and his men. Tom Felts wanted revenge, and the only thing that could satisfy him and the agency was the death of Sid Hatfield. Sid Hatfield and his deputy Ed Chambers were brought up on charges of destroying the Mohawk mining camp in McDowell County. On August 1st, 1921, Hatfield, Chambers, and their wives traveled unarmed to the McDowell County Courthouse in Welch to stand trial. Upon reaching the courthouse, Hatfield and Chambers were shot and killed by waiting Baldwin Felts agents. In the coming weeks, between 5,000 and 20,000 miners marched on Charleston, the capital of West Virginia, to have their plight heard, and after being denied, they decided to march on Logan, where Sheriff Don Chafin had assembled a private army to destroy the miners. This culminated in the Battle of Blair Mountain, and during the battle, U.S. Army troops were called in to put down the miners, and the U.S. Air Force even dropped chemical and regular bombs on the miners' position and in the towns, and it's the only time the U.S. military took up arms against a striking force. After the battle ended, the U.S. Army took control and forced an end to the mine wars, and the government sided with the mine owners, much to the surprise of the miners. Several striking miners were arrested for treason, but most were sent home unemployed. UMWA membership dropped significantly between 1921 and 1924. It's impossible to figure out how many people died in the mine wars, but some people estimate the number was over 1,500. This is easily one of the darkest chapters in American history, and it's been purposely forgotten, but the spirit of the miner still lives on in the hills of southern West Virginia.
Welcome back. You know, it's like I said in the beginning, this was one of the worst tragedies to ever occur on American soil. It got so bad that martial law was declared and the military was brought in to handle the situation. And how it was handled was atrocious. But it finally brought forth the changes to the mining industry that are still there today. Were these men martyrs? I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder. But that's all I've got for you guys today. As always, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. God bless you. God love you. We do. And we'll see you out there.